Alright, so I'm settling my debts here. This truck belongs to a plumber, and we made a deal for finished plumbing. I do this 100,000 mile maintenance. So I kind of wanted to talk about that and give you my perspective of someone who's been doing this a little while. So first thing he asked is just, he has no complaints. The truck drives good, runs good. He just says, I know I need to do some maintenance. I don't know exactly what to do. So first thing you want to check is literally the owner's manual has so much information. This is the most valuable resource you have right here. So we find this maintenance chart, and on this maintenance chart, we basically look at what the inspection or maintenance items are. This one, for example, rotate tires, service brakes, check engine oil. This one's a basic maintenance that's due every 7,500 miles. So the point's not really to show you every detail, but every car has a maintenance interval schedule. Every car. The manufacturer makes this based on the engineers and how they design the things and the fluids and everything. So this is your number one. It's more valuable than your friend who works on cars, than some mechanic that's been doing it for 30 years, whatever. Because things change. So if this was 15, 20 years ago, 7,500 miles is way too long to do oil changes. But this is a 2015, and it doesn't matter what we used to do on 97s. It's a 2015. It's totally different. So the main thing was, he came to me, I wanted to see what maintenance should have been done. So a couple little notes. It's going to be hard to read, so mainly I'm just going to explain. He'd been keeping up on his oil changes. That was good. He wasn't really doing a good job here on the passenger compartment air filter. So I did that. And you can tell he wasn't doing a great job on it. And it's not a big deal. This isn't damaging anything, but this is the air he's breathing in the vehicle. So I don't know exactly where he's taking it. Wherever he was taking it was a little off base on what they were probably recommending. So I knew immediately that we need to keep an eye on that. And then down here, it actually talks about, if you're in extreme service, change the transfer case fluid. Well, this is a two-wheel drive. So the vehicle doesn't always match up to the manual perfectly, because they publish this manual, as you can see, it's for Silverados. It's not for two-wheel drive, four-door, 6-liter gas Silverados. It's for all the Silverados. So sometimes you gotta do a little interpretation. But the next major maintenance, this is mostly inspection items. The next major maintenance is right here. All right, I think I got a better view. Is right here at 45K. So at 45K, it needs the same old oil change. Again, it needs that passenger compartment, aka the cabin filter. But also it needs the engine air filter, inspect the evap system, change the automatic transmission fluid and filter, service the four-wheel drive, whether it's extreme or not. Severe service is due. It's a little lower here. Replace the brake fluid, replace the clutch fluid. Well, again, this is 2500 HT. They don't offer manual anymore. They used to. They were pretty cool. So basically, I am very confident that quite a few items were missed here, wherever he was going. But it's all good. We're going to catch up on it. So jumping forward to now, he's got 97,000 something miles. I just want to have an overall perspective of what's been done and what's been missed. So if we jump forward to the 97K, because he's at 99 now, he just missed, but barely, another major service with all those same items I just mentioned. You see, that occurs here, here, and again. So those are basically on 45,000 mile intervals. So he would have been, that would have been due at 90. It's all good. We're going to roll it together with the 100. So we're going to essentially do the 90 and the 97,500 combined, because there's a big change on the 97.5. On the 97.5, that check mark is showing us we want to replace the spark plugs and inspect the spark plug wires. So, and going forward, there's really no other changes. So basically at 100K, this truck should have had everything maintained that's really a maintenance item. You'll notice it doesn't say replace tires. It does talk about inspect, inspect, inspect. It doesn't say replace brakes. It doesn't talk about replacing shock absorbers, because those are different type of maintenance. This is the manufacturer's maintenance interval, and they're looking at fluids and filters and whatnot. And that's really different than looking at these tires. These tires are going to last how long they're going to last. So first check that, get a plan together. For me, I knew what he had done. I knew what he didn't do, so I got a lot of stuff. The other thing is, it talks about inspecting the evap system, which is important, but it didn't really talk about, for example, like it does say visually inspect the drive belts, but doesn't say to replace them. So I mean, you're gonna inspect, inspect, inspect. It actually calls for replacement way over here at 150K, and you know, I guess that's okay. But the thing is, I'm doing this big, huge service, so I said, hey, let's do the belts now. Because the thing is he gonna remember 150K to do the belts? Maybe not. But if I put belts on at 100, they're gonna be good to 200 or 250. Pretty much we're done. So I'm doing all the major maintenance items he's gonna have to worry about for a long time. And now I didn't need to tell him, hey, you need to do your belts at 100. I just say, I personally am recommending we do the belts. And I personally am recommending we don't inspect the spark plug wires, we replace them. So here's his old wires. They look all right, but the thing is, I'm gonna be pulling the wire off to access the spark plug. These are the old spark plugs. I've got the new ones ready to go. If I'm gonna be pulling the spark plug wire off, who's to say I might not pull a little too hard and separate the conductor, from the socket. I'm gonna recommend anytime you do spark plugs, do the wires, period. Now they came with the heat shields, little metal heat shields, so I've swapped them over. And also it comes with a small amount of dielectric grease, so I've got these ones pre-greased. So at least the next person work on them, they're gonna come off a little bit better. I like to slide them on, pop them on, and turn them a little. So I've kind of got this stuff staged. I've changed half the spark plugs. I've done a couple other things though, so let's do a little walk. I'm gonna set my screwdriver down for a second. I start with a nice visual inspection and a walk around. So I'm looking, lights, whatnot, and I did find a couple things with my light here. He's got some tire damage. So it's in for maintenance, and if you're a monkey see, monkey do, you just do the maintenance that's on the chart. But I really need to inspect this vehicle thoroughly. So I found that tire damage, so I'm gonna recommend a minimum of one tire. He should really do 2 tires, but probably I'm gonna say, hey, if you want to do one, be all right. It's a 2-wheel drive truck. Also, I'm rubbing my hand across these tires, and I feel a little bit of chopping. So it's smooth this way, but you can actually hear my glove catching. It's time for a rotation on these, and I'll also feel better when that tire is in the back. A little better to put a bad tire back there. So I may not be able to get that tire today. It's a Sunday, so I'm doing my visual. As part of my visual, I notice his brakes are low, so I've got brakes coming. So it's 100K maintenance, but that quickly turns into 100K maintenance per the manual plus whatever you see it needs. And his other tires are okay, and the pressures were good. And as for the fluids and other items, the cabin air filter's inside, already done. The engine air filter I've already done. These 4 spark plugs I've done, but everything's at inspection. So check out that bolt right there. Well, you can't because it's too bright, but look at that. That bolt on that heat shield is backed out, and I found another one on the other side. So I'm just gonna snug those up for him. I don't know why they're loose. I don't think anyone had ever worked on it, but it is what it is. Also, I mean, this is just the reservoir, but I'm pretty confident that there's never been any brake fluid maintenance done. There's two things I could do. One, I could do a test on this using strips to test copper content, but you know, I typically ask the customer, I say, do you remember doing any brake fluid maintenance? And I'm like, brakes? And they're like, no, the brake fluid. Oh no, I don't think so. So the brake fluid's been due twice already. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna flush the brake fluid. I'm gonna top off his washer fluid. The power steering fluid on this is a little tougher to flush. So I'm gonna think about maybe just draining it by pulling off a hose down on the bottom and draining it out as much as I can and just filling it. There are machines to flush it. There are also ways to use buckets and hoses and stuff, but that one actually wasn't even called out in the maintenance. The other thing is those belts. This is the main serpentine belt. It drives all the belt-driven accessories minus the air conditioner compressor, which is lower. You notice there's the second belt way down in there. That's a stretchy type belt. So the thing with those is you actually have to cut them off, and then you need a special tool to get them back on. So that's part of it too, is, you know, I'm just really gonna hook them up, and these belts have 100,000 miles of wear and tear and time. So, you know, I don't think it's overselling it. Also, the coolant, you know, it didn't call out a coolant interval, but if I look up in a different spot in the manual, it'll actually spec out a lot of information about the coolant, what coolant it needs, a lot of that type of stuff. So it does talk about other things in here. It talks about the tire rotation, the other inspections, and whatnot. But in here, recommended lubricants and stuff in 1112, it will call out all the other items. So like inspect shocks and struts. It also calls out what type of fluids are needed specifically, even gives you part numbers. You know, for example, I'm going to do the transmission fluid for him at 100K. It was supposed to have been done another couple times, but we're going to catch up on all the maintenance now. It's calling out, it's actually a 6-liter, I thought. It's going to be Dextron 6, I'm quite sure. I may have to read a little bit more carefully, but I know what type of fluid it's going to be. So one transmission takes this fluid, one transmission takes a totally different fluid, and it gives you both part numbers. So don't ask the auto parts store. They're just going to sell you whatever they got. It calls out a lot of part numbers and fluids, and you know, the different filters and whatnot. So there's a lot of good info there. I noticed it. I didn't catch the coolant. There's our belt diagrams. I know in here it calls out coolant, but my general rule of thumb is kind of like, you got 100,000 miles on this coolant. It may not actually be due yet, but I'm here doing all this service. I'm going to recommend the coolant, and he's going to go for it. So it just calls out the 50-50 mixture of which type. Actually, it says on 1021 there may be more info. So you can use Google, YouTube, or whatever, but this is the facts right here. So it gives a lot of info on coolant, but 5 years or 150K miles. Well, it's a 15, so it's 7 years old. So it's time for coolant. Which, no problem. I've got the coolant already. So that's kind of how you navigate. It's not perfectly laid out here. You might have to read around a little and just think of what fluids are there. So this one being 2-wheel drive is much more simple. Coolant, engine oil, which has been done all the time, brake fluid, there's no clutch, there's power steering fluid. A lot of the lighter trucks have gone to electronic power steering. There's nothing to do there. And then the transmission, which I pulled the dipstick, and the transmission fluid's a little bit dark. It's not terrible. So that's why I said, hey, you know what? I wouldn't really stress it, but let's do a full flush. When you do the drain the fluid and replace the filter, that's going to get you about 5 or 6 quarts, and this holds about 16, counting the torque converter and the transmission cooler and everything. I'm just gonna leave the dipstick there. So if I do the flush of the full 16, you know, I'm gonna feel better, and that's gonna kind of get us up to date. This has no four-wheel drive, so there's no front differential, there's no transfer case. All we got is this rear drive axle, and I may have to read a little bit more to see if it's due, but I'm telling you what, it's 100K miles, I'm doing it. Now, this one may not have a drain plug, but I have a vacuum so I can suck the fluid out of it. So it's not real super DIY friendly, but I've got the tools, so I'm just gonna take care of it. And then, you know, four-wheel brakes, recommend the one tire. And that's pretty much like, I mean, that's everything. Even if some maintenance has been missed along the way, like this engine air filter has definitely got more than 15K, and this has definitely got more than 15K. It's all good. We're just gonna get it caught up. It's not gonna be that big of a thing. And it doesn't seem like it's really hurt the truck. So those are some of the items to look for. So that's it for now. I'm gonna get a little bit further into it and check back up. Got a lot of work to do for one day. There's that rear axle. It did have a drain after all. That's sweet. I got some good stuff here. Alright, got the oil finishing up. Just got the coolant. Drained it out of that lower hose. Got the transmission flush machine. I'm going to start filling that up right now. As you see, I got to get rid of that coolant. So we're moving along. Alright, making some progress. Just got the flush started. We're going to do the full 16 quarts. It's only transfusion about 2. The hoses are similar color right now, but you can tell this one's the clean one. So this is what's flowing out of the machine. The more we start to get this flush through and it pulls it from the truck, this is gonna get just darker and darker. So that's doing its thing. As you can see, freaking took a grip of Deck 6. These are $10 a piece per quart. I ran out of the Valvoline, so I went with the O'Reilly's brand, but they're compatible. Oil change is done. I did a little fuel injection service. Power steering, I sucked what I could out. I put some new stuff in. The brake fluid I haven't started yet. Spark plugs are done. Wires are done. Coolant is done, and actually as I'm running, I've got the funnel burping it. I gotta add some more, it's a little bit low. You know, as you run it and it circulates, it bleeds the air out through the thermostat. When the thermostat opens, it'll take a big gulp of that, so I need to top it off. Belts are on. Stretchy belt was a pain in my butt, but the transfusion's going. This fluid wasn't really all that dirty either, which is good, but it's gonna be new. So we're up to, we moved 10 quarts through there so far. So I'm gonna grab the oh, and I did the rear axle and the oil filter too. I got a Wix. I'm gonna grab the brake flusher and start getting it set up for the brakes. So the next step will be pulling the wheels. I gotta get these front and rear brakes on. You see, like, I'm just freaking spreading out here. Rotors, pads. I got the proper lubricant, all that stuff, and I'll do the brake flush, and that's about it. So we're at 14 now, so it's moved quite a bit. You know, this is staying actually pretty clean. That synthetic fluid's funny, but it was time based on mileage, so it's good we're getting her done. Alright, progress report. So I got it obviously lifted with the wheels pulled off. This thing is a heavy beast, I'm gonna tell you. This lift struggled. So just about to get these calipers off, clean them, lube them, put the new pads in, put the new rotors in, front and rear. You see the front rotor there, you see the rear rotor there. But currently what I'm doing is the brake flush. So you see this one I just got started on. It's pressurized up under the hood, so like this one you can see there's a lot of fluid in there. That thing's, a lot came out. That one's flushed. This one's flushed. You can see a lot of fluid. So before I get into the brakes, I'm just, I got this pressurized container of brand new brake fluid pumped up to 15 PSI, 20 PSI in the ballpark, and it's pressurizing the master cylinder. So I go around and crack the bleeders one by one and just let it run out. And in the meantime, just trying to be efficient with time, I pre-rotated the tires. You know, this was off the rear, so it had 80, so I dropped it to 60. This was off the front, so it had 60. I raised it to 80. Got those ready to go. I'm just going to get these brake pads cut open, get them kind of pre-staged. Probably by the time that's done, I can close that bleeder and move it to the last corner. Finish the brake bleed, then I have to pull the bleeder off because there's no way I'm going to pull these calipers off with it pressurized. It's going to end up blowing the caliper pistons out. So I'm just kind of jumping back and forth. So it's been a lot of work, but this part should go pretty fast. And then I'll be buttoning it up. I'll give you a little update. Alright, it's been a long day, but definitely about to turn the heat up. So rotors, pads, lube the slides. There's the old stuff. There's the old stuff. Rotors, pads, lube the slides. Had to obviously compress the pistons. So just about to get the wheels back on it. Old stuff. Old stuff. Looking pretty good. So it's a pretty big job. All gravy, all easy work, but a lot of it, you know. So let me get the wheels back on, get it running, check it all over. All right, we're on, wheels on. So this is the pressure bleeder that I use for the flusher. Basically, we've got all these adapters. The adapter for this truck was right here. Put that on, pump this up, open the valve, and it pressurizes the brand new .4 that I just put in there. And I just topped it off and set the level, but brake fluid you gotta be careful with. It's really bad for pretty much anything. I was very careful to not let it ever touch the paint, but when I was popping it off, just a little bit of brake fluid got on the reservoir. So I'm just gonna simple green this whole thing down, start it up, back it out, and hose the whole thing off. Because you know, a little bit of coolant, a little bit of oil, a little bit of whatever turns into smoke and smell. And I don't need the customer thinking they got a leak. And then I'm gonna leave it running for a bit and recheck everything. And this baby should be ready to roll. And one little pain in the butt detail, to really get the flusher on here, I had to pull this bracket and stuff off. You know, so just once in a while, it becomes a little bit inconvenient, but I just gotta button that back up. Got the tools and the bolt right here, so although I can work a lot better not videotaping, I'm just gonna give this baby, this is the last bolt in the whole job right here. I'm doing it left-handed, so I like to get it right where it was so I don't leave, you know, like the washer will cover up the white paint but not the dirt. That way I know it's exactly where it was. Just buzz them up. So we're ready to roll. Just gonna degrease it. Alright, I just got it all rinsed down, just rinsing it just a tiny little bit more. And you know, with the brand new belts and everything, shouldn't really be a problem, but if those belts were old, sometimes just a little degreaser and a little water will start making them squeal. So be careful of that. If the belts are questionable, it's better to not try to spray them. If the ignition system is old, it's better to not get the ignition system wet, but all that stuff is new, so the water is not even bothering it a bit. I'm just gonna leave it running for a little bit, turn the water off, and you know, check for any leaks. And also I got a tire pressure light on, and it's I think it doesn't recognize which the tire locations are, but I gotta make sure I resolve those last couple issues, and then 60 something miles home. Alright, so after scrolling through, I realized what I got. Because I rotated the tires, it thinks that the rear tires are in the front and the front are in the rear. So it's seeing those pressures, and those pressures are incorrect. So I need to relearn the tire, the TPMS sensor positions. No big deal. I should have known. I worked a lot of GM stuff before. That's pretty standard. So I got the tool for that. So just got to set up the new positions. It'll take just a few minutes, and then you know, I'll do my quality assurance checks. I'll make sure we're good to go. That's how you really take care of a customer, not just bang it out the door. Alright, so just going through. You know, the purpose of the video is not to really show the TPMS relearn, but more to illustrate what, you know, a 100K major maintenance would be like, and some of the stuff you may need. And it's not always that DIY friendly. I gotta also get rid of those rotors. But you know, there's a process through here to go through the instrument panel and initiate the relearn. And then you can actually, the double beep means it completed. So check it out. So the spec being 60 for the front, 59 is great, 60 is great, you know, those are in the ballpark, those are perfect. And the rear being 80, 78 is perfect. So it's just relearning the positions. Now I got no tire pressure warning light, so I'm gonna leave it running. I'll do one last check over. I'm gonna power this tool down. I got a lot of stuff to clean up. I had a mop. In the meantime, you know, I want to save the customer's fuel, but I really need to leave this running so that way I'm gonna be able to do my best check for leaks and final inspection, and then we're rolling, baby. All right, so you know, doing the final look over, no sign of leaks. I did notice though, the coolant is a hair low because it's light kind of not helping, but it's just below the cold line, and this is at a full 210. So I'm gonna top that up. The real reason why is because now that it's running, it's fully up to over 210. The thermostat opened all the way. It burped a little bit more air out, which meant it sucked a little more coolant down. So that's pretty typical. But you know, I'm just looking. You really got to have a good flashlight, and you should be dirty if you're not doing your job right. I'm not gonna drive the car home all dirty, but you know, I'm just checking. Everything I touched needs to be checked. Everything, you know, those ignition wires, the spark plugs, I tightened up some of those bolts. The brake fluid looks good. The coolant will be good in a second. You know, I'm just doing a good recheck, making sure there's no leaks. You know, I'm getting drips all over from the water, but none of it's got any oil, you know, and I'm not gonna re-rack it. I can see plenty visually just from as is, so I'm gonna call this one good. You can trust me. I'm just gonna top the coolant off and call this one done. I've reset the oil change light to 100%. Every vehicle's different, but you know, the customers don't understand. If they see the oil saying that they're you know, need an oil change or something, they think it's measuring the actual oil pressure or something. It's just a reset. If you miss the reset, they think you didn't change the oil. They don't realize you just forgot the reset. So the reset on this was just all GMs, pretty much the same. Keon, three pedal presses. Every vehicle is slightly different. So this baby's done. I don't know what that job would have cost. Probably, it was $1,000 in parts. It was actually over that. It was $1,000 my cost. It'd be about $1,500 retail, and that was probably 12 hours labor. So I mean, ballpark, that's a $3,000 job. But we got a deal. We made a deal. He helped me out. I'm gonna help him out. So I'm happy. He's happy. But you know, that's a big job. It's dark. I mean, you can see this took me all day. I've been on this job all day. So that's sweet. Job well done, I think. All right, this baby's riding sweet. Everything is looking good. No temperature problems. I'm over 50 miles on it already. Still got a ways to go though. But I'll call this job complete.